going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Today, me and Tucker are going to share with you the incredible style of gardening that easily doubled our harvest while doing less work. Let's go! In essence, square foot gardening is simple. It's like the name implies. It's about planting out the garden 1 square foot at a time. But the deeper you dig, the more you come to realize that this way of gardening is way more versatile and way more effective than you could even imagine. This method of gardening is perfect for beginners, yet also extremely valuable for even expert gardeners. It will give you a well-organized, easy to maintain, highly efficient garden. It's all about ease and about growing more food in less space. Even for experienced gardeners, deciding how to plant out a 40 square foot bed can be a bit overwhelming. But it's much easier if we break down these 40 square feet and decide what to plant 1 square foot at a time. Look how packed with food this 40 square foot bed is. Notice the diversity in all the different kinds of plants that I'm growing. That's one of the advantages to square foot gardening. You can grow many different kinds of crops together and they can benefit one another. It's like companion planting on steroids. Not only can you grow plants that naturally deter pests, like onions and marigolds, but you can also get the most out of the space by planting a crop like carrots. In 1 square foot, you could plant 16 of them in that same bed. With all the different kinds of plants growing together, it makes the whole bed better balanced because we know that there is stability in diversity, especially when the plants form beneficial connections. Another cool thing about square foot gardening is that it's scalable. It will work just as well in a 2x4 bed like we have right here as it will in a bigger bed like I just showed you. This style of gardening works even better when used in tandem with a few other methods. For example, growing vertically. If you want to grow a tomato plant and it's an indeterminate variety, if you let that sprawl out, it will take up about a 4 foot by 4 foot section. But if you grow your tomatoes vertically and use the square foot method, you can plant your tomatoes 1 square foot apart, like I do with my trellis right here. Not only will you be saving space, but your plants will actually grow better because they will have better access to light. The light will be more evenly distributed throughout the plant. Also, when growing vertically, the plants will have better airflow. And we know that air and light are the enemies of disease. So inherently, your plants are going to have less issues. Not to mention how much easier growing vertically makes harvesting. It's way easier to see when the tomatoes are ripe, and it's a way more enjoyable process to go out there and grab a tomato when it's head height instead of getting on your hands and knees and searching for a ripe tomato. You know the little bosses out here? It might look like he's just hanging out, but he's actually working hard. Tuck's always just overseeing. He's got the perfect vantage point to be able to see if anything sneaks in, a squirrel or something. If they do, he'll chase them right out. If you love seeing Tuck in the videos, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and also share this video with your friends if you think that they might get some value out of it. Me and Tuck also want to mention that Epic Gardening is having a massive sale on the Birdies raised beds. So if you want to grab a raised bed that's high quality, long lasting, and easy to assemble, now is the time to grab some. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to pick up a few, and I'll also pin a comment. Another method you need to tie into square foot gardening if you want to get the most out of it is succession planting. Ideally, there should never be an open square in your garden. When you harvest one crop, there should be another one on deck waiting to go in and replace it. For instance, I just harvested radishes, 16 per square foot. They were absolutely beautiful and they tasted fantastic. When I did that, I made sure that I had a pepper plant waiting to go in and replace it. This way, I'm using time to my advantage and growing more food in less space. After I harvested my radishes, I mixed the soil a little bit, then dug a hole to plant my pepper in. In that hole, I added a little bit of all-purpose fertilizer, mixed that in, then took my pepper plant and transplanted it into the center of my square foot. Then I added a little more fertilizer on the top and mixed that into the top few inches, then watered it in. The whole process took about 2 minutes. Proper planting leads to successful succession planting. So it's a good idea to have a few trays started with seedlings. This way you can replace the plants that you harvest. For example, I have some trays of lettuces, peppers, and flowers ready to go in as I harvest stuff this spring. When you're succession planting correctly, you should be able to grow 2 to 3 crops in 1 square foot per growing season. So essentially, 1 6-foot bed is more like a 12 or 18 square foot bed when you use the power of succession planting. Interplanting is another great way to get more out of your square foot garden. For instance, when planting the pepper like I did, you could stick in some quick growing crops like radishes or even lettuces in those corners. This way you can get a harvest from the radish while you're waiting for the pepper to produce, because the pepper won't start producing for like 2 months. When planting out your bed, you also want to make sure that you're staggering your plantings. This way you can extend your harvest over a longer period of time and you aren't overloaded with one crop all at once. once. For instance, when planting carrots, I'll plant one round of carrots, and then after that, I'll plant another round of carrots about 1 to 2 weeks later. For my lettuce, I make sure to stagger plant those as well. So I'll plant my lettuce and make sure that I plant another round about 2 weeks later, and I'll always have other lettuces ready to go in, either in pots or in trays. I'll just harvest one lettuce, then take one lettuce that I have waiting in a pot, and then I'll just transplant that lettuce to replace the one that I just removed. This intensive style of planting utilizes space so well that you won't have to weed as much, because the weeds will just have a tough time getting access to light, because the plants will just shade a lot of the ground out because everything is planted so densely. Since your planting area is small, the weeding area is small also. So if you do have to weed, it's really easy and it goes really fast because you just don't have a lot of space that you have to weed. When the heat comes, make sure to add a nice organic mulch to your bed. This way you'll have to do little to no weeding. And we all know weeding is the worst part about gardening. We want to spend more time harvesting, less time weeding. Square foot gardening requires very few tools, which means you won't have to fork out a bunch of money just to get started. You can grow in the ground or in raised beds. I prefer raised beds because once you get them built and filled, the majority of the work is already done. I like to use string to section out my squares. I just take a tape measure every square foot, then I'll use deck screws, put those deck screws in to attach the string. Then I'm left with perfect squares everywhere, which allows me to space everything very accurately and allows me to really get the most out of the space that I'm growing in. Me and Tuck want to show you in detail some of our square foot beds. Look at all the food in here. Anything you can think of. Lettuces getting close to harvest, parsley, cilantro right next to that, broccoli's getting ready. Look, slow bolt leaf lettuce. This one lasts later into the summer, even though it's getting close to harvest. More lettuces over here. We just started putting peppers in. Look at the spinach. So beautiful. We're really gonna have to start eating some of this spinach because we have so much spinach. Come to over here more. Just look at all the food. Look at this yellow Chinese cabbage. Look at the beautiful color on the center. Everything just, there's almost no space that you could actually, fill in. This is how to get the most out of the area that you have. Come over here. Look at Tuck looking for something. Chill out, boy, chill out. We'll get him a mustard green. He loves those. So over here, we've got some mustards planted dense too. And don't think that we don't have flowers in here. We've got some borage growing, getting ready to start flowering. And we've even got some other kind of zinnias and stuff in here too. I think that's the candy cane, one of my favorite all-time zinnias. Check out actually before I do that, Tuck, you want some mustard greens, boy? This guy loves the mustard greens. He loves the stalks on them because they got a lot of water in them. We'll let him snack on that. Look at the tomatoes that we have planted 1 square foot apart as well, growing up strings, making sure to utilize that vertical space. Think about it. We've got left, we've got right, we get behind us. We got to make sure we're using the area above us. That's just so important. Check this out over here too. I want to show you something. Here's another square foot bed that I didn't run the strings in, but the way I plant out this bed is I'll take this board right here that I made, it's 1 square foot, and then I'll just plop it down and outline it. What that will do is it'll let me know that that section is 1 square foot, and that's how I plant out a bed like this. And I mean, you almost can't fit more food in here. I just love to see it. Look at this. Spinach, as the spinach starts to come out, the cabbages will fill more of that space in, and then we'll just be harvesting so much food from this little birdie's raised bed here. It's funny because the birds like to hang out up here, and then on this top part here, and then they just do some droppings down here, so they're kind of fertilizing the bed, which isn't a bad thing. We just got to make sure we wash the food before we eat it. And check out the keyhole bed. This is a combination of a few different space-saving techniques. For instance, that keyhole method where you could get the most out of the space, and then everything is reachable from here using the square foot method, and then in the back is where we grow our cucumbers up vertically. So there's so many space-saving techniques integrated into just this one bed to make sure, I know I've said it so many times, but it needs to be emphasized, that we're getting the most out of the space that we have. You will also be saving money because you need less seeds to get your garden planted. When you know exactly how many plants you want to grow, let's say 4 lettuce in 1 square foot, you could just plant that out. You won't have to plant a whole row of lettuce and then go back and then thin out the lettuce to get correct spacing. Instead, you could just plant the 4 lettuce seeds in 1 square foot, basically in those 4 corners. What I like to do is I'll sow a few extra seed in each location just to make sure that I get good germination. But Compared to something like planting in rows, you're gonna save so much seed, which will then save you so much money in the long run when you don't have to buy as many packs of seed. I find that watering is more efficient when growing like this because since your plants are so close together, it's a small area, you only have to water that small area instead of having to water the whole garden. Planting with this method is so structured that it saves a huge amount of time, which then allows you to use the time that you saved to plant out more beds. And then when you plant out more beds, you can get bigger harvests because you're spending your time doing the most important tasks, which will then lead to bigger harvests in the future. When planting in your beds, just make sure to arrange plants properly. You want the tallest plants to be on the north side of the bed and the shortest plants on the south side of the bed. This way, as the season progresses and the sun drops lower in the south, the tall plants won't be shading out those smaller plants. Again, shortest plants on the south, tallest plants on the north. What you decide to plant in your square foot garden is up to you, but I suggest you start by keeping it simple. Grow things that you like to eat, but also sprinkle in some things that will get you excited and will encourage you to get out into the garden more. Because the more time you spend in the garden, the better the garden will do and the more experience you'll be able to soak up. Experience is one of the most valuable tools for gardeners because the past can really help guide you for the future. That's why I highly suggest that you start keeping a garden journal if you haven't been doing it already. That's probably the greatest tool that I have. My garden journal helps to tell me when to plant things, how to avoid issues before they rise up, and when it comes to problems in the garden, it's always better to either prevent or avoid the issue rather than having to manage it. So you really have to get your garden journal going. When it comes down to it though, I mean, square foot gardening, it seems so simple, but it's so versatile. There's so much more to the onion of square foot gardening as you really start to peel back all the layers. There's very few rules when square foot gardening. Most of the rules have to do with plant spacing. And if you want the exact specifics of how many plants you should put per square foot, I suggest you go to the book for that. It has some great information in there, and it also has good information of how to time out your plantings. So this book, the Square Foot Gardening book, I'll put a link in the description, but this isn't my book. I didn't write it. This isn't my method. I just think it works so fantastic, not only for new gardeners, but also for experienced gardeners also. I suggest you try it out. Try it on at least one bed. You might end up like me, 3 years later, still just addicted with this method. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Me and Tuck had an absolute blast out here. I mean, we always do. We really, really hope that you at least try square foot gardening. We think that if you do try it, that it's gonna make a major difference in your harvest, and it's gonna make a major difference in how much time you actually have to put in to get good, consistent harvests. It also just simplifies the whole garden so much, and it really does make the whole experience so much more enjoyable. Like I had mentioned before, I think it was like 3 years ago that I actually started square foot gardening. I just wanted to try it in one little section. And then every single year, I now just like bring it to more sections because I just love the method so much. Tuck, get down from there, boy. This guy's looking for some carrots. He wanted a little more camera action. He's having fun out here too. He's soaking up some of the heat, and we're making sure we provide him with a lot of water and stuff. But we love all the comments and the love shared to Tuck. If you're a Tuck enjoyer, if you're a Tuck fan, make sure you spam some hearts down low for the big boss. We also want to mention to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and share this video with your friends if you think that this will provide them with some value. Also, we want to mention to check out some of the spring merch at jamesprigioni.com. This is a limited time thing. It's the Gardening is Life shirt with the flower of life right on it. We also wanted to mention one other thing, to send a thank you to one of our new channel members, Mary Ann Foster. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. If you want to really be part of the team, you can hit that join now button at the bottom and just support the team, support little homie, as I like to call him sometimes, the little boss, the guardian of the garden. He's got more nicknames than you could even imagine, but I'll tell you what, he's definitely the king and he's definitely the boss. We had a lot of fun. We hope you guys did too. James and Tuck will be back again real soon. We out.